Welcome to the 10 Count, the only wrestling show where you win when we count you out. I'm one of your hosts, Myron Fancher, as many people call me the Dave Hebner of Pro Referees, and I'm joined by head referee Nick Patrick McDaniel. Welcome to the 10 Count.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are again for the 10 Count. And this is your specialty, man. I like your intro. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm having fun with that myself. We are your favorite officiating crew.
I like the whole 10 count where it's the only place where you win when you count out things. I like that. That's pretty cool. So here we are in WrestleMania season. So pretty much all of our 10 count episodes are obviously going to tie in with WrestleMania. We obviously, if you are a fan of the show, you will know that we did the, archived episode where we did the Ultimate WrestleMania card, which was a big blast. It was awesome to do.
Yeah. That was work. That involved research like I haven't done since college.
You having to go back and do that history. Yeah, it was a little bit of a lesson. You're right.
I had charts and graphs.
And now, we're going to do something a little bit different. This is super subjective. We always joke about how subjective wrestling is. Well, we're about to do one that is about as subjective as you could possibly get because it's not matches, etc. We went for the old saying is everybody wants their WrestleMania moment.
Yes.
So the logic became, what are our 10 favorite WrestleMania moments?
And this is what touched you when. It could have been the fact that I watched the first few WrestleManias religiously, faded out, faded back in, watched a bunch more, faded out, faded back in, started watching again. There are gaps in the WrestleManias I've seen, the WrestleManias I can remember. And a lot of times if you kind of know what's going into the WrestleMania, you don't understand. It's not the drama. The drama is watching a WrestleMania live or back when the WrestleMania 1 came out on VHS and you had no idea what happened on it. Because, even then, the Coliseum videos were as good as a movie release. If the video store had the copy of WrestleMania 1, you're like, oh yeah, I got it. Daddy, let me rent this. And
yeah, that was a big, for us, it was like a movie release. You're right. We would go to the video store cause we couldn't afford pay-per-views.
Ain't nobody pay-per-viewing shit at my house.
So that being said, let's dive right into what we thought were the best WrestleMania moments. I'm going to start this week because I'm going to pull a Myron and I'm going to have an honorable mention right out of the gate, which normally we don't do. And I say this in the weirdest of ways when I say it's the honorable mention. I felt like this was a turning point in wrestling, especially the WWE as a whole. It would be at WrestleMania 20. At the end of the pay-per-view, we have Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit celebrating the fact that they are both the tag teams. They are the world champions and the WWE champions at the time.
Yeah, you can't. Two guys that are no longer with us. None of those moments will ever be seen again. There's no coming back like that. All the other retirees do. And it's horrible that we don't have those guys anymore, but what they did while they were still alive in the ring is some of the most amazing moments you'll ever see. Nobody could captivate like those two. When they were the Radicals, when they were, in WCW, they always had that greater presence. They were always so intense, with Latino Heat being the charisma and Benoit just being the toughness and just the style and the technique and the intensity. It was just, they were two people that are missed in wrestling, a lot more, than I think just about anyone else that's passed has been missed.
And, I gave it the honorable mention spot just because for the sake of, in the grand scheme of things, it's almost like WWE wipes, everything Chris Benoit out.
Yeah. That's sad and it's understandable at the same time.
I do believe last time I checked, you can actually still see this. I think for some reason, this is still on the network. But just as a whole, Chris Benoit has pretty much been wiped from the, WWE, archives. And that's kind of why I put it here, and it maybe wasn't the best reason to put it here, but that's why it's there. Eddie had already won his title. He beat Brock. But on this card, he defeated Kurt Angle earlier in the night, defending the title. So you think about that, 2 pay-per-views. He beats Brock Lesnar and he defeats Kurt Angle. That's a pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's a pretty good resume.
But the really shocking part of this was that night, it was a triple threat with, and I don't know if you remember that, it was Triple H, HBK, and Chris Benoit in a triple threat.
Submission match, wasn't it?
It's just a triple threat. The crazy part of it is, if you heard those 3 names back in that time, would you have ever thought that Chris Benoit would have been the one walking?
No, you wouldn't think. I mean, as good as he was, you would never think he was going to be the one that goes over. Because, I mean, he wasn't the guy that sold the most T-shirts. He was just the guy that was just that damn good. Triple H was a big seller. HBK's probably sold more merchandise than 80% of the people in wrestling. But Chris Benoit was the one they picked to go over because, honestly, Chris Benoit he'd still be working today if they could make him because he was that good a worker. And he was just, he'd be teaching at the Performance Center, a trainer at NXT. He'd have been involved in the program still because he was that solid.
And the sad part is, the whole way, the story, and we're not going to go into how it ended, but it's a shame because we talk about them having their WrestleMania moments. I clearly don't think this would have been Chris Benoit's last WrestleMania moment.
No.
Had his, the ending wouldn't have went down the way it did.
Or Eddie would have had a lot more too because Eddie was lovable. And Eddie was the most successful Latino star ever come through WWE in recent memory. I mean, Ray got pretty big, but Eddie was over. Eddie had pop. I mean, he had everything you could need. And I think the WWE lost a valued link that they could have had because, they keep stumbling with their Latino stars.
Yeah.
And Eddie would have been a great ambassador to keep that program going had he still be alive.
Absolutely. So that's my honorable. That's kind of why I threw it in there. I just felt like it had to go in there. But, before we jump into number 10, we always clearly joke about there's always some overlap. So we just kind of go from there. So we'll start with you, man. What do you got to start your list off?
I got to go with last year, Shane coming off the cage. You don't get any scarier than Shane jumping off something. And he doesn't stop jumping off stuff. And you think he's dead. I don't know how he takes those shots when he hits, or if he knows how to roll, or if he's, got phone books taped around his chest. But he's able to take those shots and live through them. I mean, I bet his ribs are like chiclets in there rattling around.
Well, we joke about this all the time. The advantage he has, he doesn't have to worry about being healthy tomorrow.
Well, yeah, he doesn't have to work again for 364 days, like Santa Claus.
Pretty much, yeah. It's easy for Santa to get around the world in one night because he's not exhausted because he doesn't have to work tomorrow. I mean, that's the difference. Anyway, so
Shane's pretty much flown as much as Santa Claus has these last few years when he jumps off stuff.
Yeah, it's
that jump Tuesday night. I mean, it wasn't as high, but shoot, that was a lot of ground to cover because we were just sitting there watching SmackDown, and my girlfriend's like, "God, he's really far away," and she doesn't give 2 shits about wrestling. But that was a big deal. It's Shane's all over the place, and Shane, he draws you in. Even though he's one of the richest men in the world, heir to one of the greatest fortunes, but somehow you get the feeling like he's the underdog and he's that guy you want to be sympathetic for. And then he does these things and it's like, oh no! And he scares the hell out of folks. It's amazing. You wouldn't want Shane on the roster 365, but when he comes in, he does his show. It's always worth seeing. He always gets some. Even if you were to lose to Shane, you still get over in the match because you're in a high spot on Mania, and not everybody gets a high card match on Mania.
But if you're fighting Shane McMahon, you're going to be one. So
exactly.
we've had this whole conversation, and it's on my list. So we'll get there in a minute. But that's kind of where we're headed from there. So we'll jump to my number 10. My number 10 is WrestleMania 30. It's it was the opening of the show where we had Hogan, Rock, and Austin all standing in the ring together. Hogan comes down, cutting his little promo. Austin's, the glass breaks, Austin comes down, and we think, are we going to finally get a stunner on Hogan? But we get a handshake instead. And as they kind of do their little banter back and forth, The Rock's music hits, he comes down. So we have basically, some would argue, the three biggest, I'm not saying the best, the three biggest superstars to ever walk through the WWE in the ring at the same time.
Yeah, that's a big deal, man.
It was a huge deal.
A solid deal.
Yeah, and then, of course, at the very end, we get the beer bash, which is, that was kind of the icing on the cake. We get the beer bash from the three super mega stars, and...
Well, that's the three guys. I mean, if you're a wrestling fan and you'd pick out to have a beer with somebody, the only other person historically I would like to have one with besides those guys is Andre. But then
the problem is you're not going to have one with Andre.
I can't. Yeah, I can't. What he ordered, I'd like 9 gin and tonics or something. Who was it? Oh, it was Pritchard doing that thing about going to the bar with Andre. Last call was 9 drinks and 16 beers.
Right, and it was funny. They would always say that, and they would never give him a hard time about it because I guess they realized he really would drink that much, which is, I guess, kind of cool in itself. I mean, if your reputation is enough that you can drink that much, more power to you.
Handle it. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
I've done that one night. I've done one of Andre's rounds in one night. It didn't end well. So I'm going to take mine. I'm going to go ahead with my number 9 now. And it is year before last at WrestleMania, where Rollins cashed in his Money in the Bank. You had Reigns and Lesnar out there fighting this epic battle, and they're both worn out, basically just down on the mat. And then here comes Rollins with his his briefcase. Cashes it in, gets in there, winds up winning the championship. That's a great, it's a great swerve. It's not one of those too many swerve things, where you over swerve. But it was exciting. It was a surprise. It was a WrestleMania moment, and it shocked everybody watching. That was a year that WrestleMania was running late, and we were watching at Nick's house, and we went home early. Something happened. The kids had to go to school or something the next day, and we left. And right after we left, Rollins cashed in, and I missed that. I had to watch it later on the network to know exactly what happened.
Well, the beauty of the network is that you could watch it later.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's not on my list. I'm kind of surprised, but it is not on my list. I guess I'm happy with it, but yeah, I get why it's on there. I totally do. We'll go to my number 9. I'd be shocked if this isn't on your list somewhere. But at WrestleMania 23, it was the match of Bobby Lashley versus Umaga with Stone Cold Steve Austin as the referee. Yes, that is my moment. No, that's not the actual moment. But it is what led to the moment. Our now President of the United States shaved the head of Vince McMahon after the match of the Battle of the Billionaires. Would you have thought, think about that, 10 years ago now, basically, because we're at 33, so 10 years ago, Donald Trump is now the President of the United States. We're not going to get political, so don't worry. But it's just shocking that 10 years ago he was standing in a WWE ring.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
He's a WWE Hall of Famer.
He shaved Vince McMahon. I've never seen Vince McMahon lose a hair match. Hair versus hair. Of course, you'd have rolled over and just pulled Trump's hair off and had been done with it.
Yeah, it would have came off pretty easy, which is why that's why that wasn't happening.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That is absolutely insane how that worked out. I've got it on my list too. It's significance of that. Even if you're not a Trump fan, which, we don't specify our political affiliations here. It's amazing to realize the ties back to wrestling.
And the amazing part about that now is that moment means more now because of what has happened.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
That's the funniest thing about it all is that that moment now means more than it even did then, because back then he was just a billionaire. Yeah. Now he's the freaking president.
Well, also back then he had hosted God knows how many WrestleManias at his venues. So he had put in his money and his time.
Oh yeah,
he'd kind of bought that spot. But that was wild.
So that's my number 9. So what you got, buddy?
I'm going to roll over from my number 8 to an odd moment at WrestleMania 1, something I remembered to this day. It's the King Kong Bundy squash on SD Jones that they claim only lasted 9 seconds. Actually lasted 24 seconds. But it was just like, oh, it's a record breaker. Oh, it's wild. Here's the giant of a man, King Kong Bundy, just crushing SD Jones. And technically the record held from 85 until 2008. It's a pretty impressive run for any record in a fake sport. That's, what people say. But, think about it. As a child watching this and just being awestruck at the mountain of a man crushing him and ending the match so quickly, that to me was, just amazing. And I've always fixated on that. I've always loved that. I've always, had a soft spot for King Kong Bundy in my heart because of that amazing finish for him. You can argue, but about different spots, but that's what mattered to me, and it's my moment.
And that's what you're sticking to.
Yeah. Yep.
Alrighty. Well, we've already addressed my number 8, but I'll go ahead and readdress it. That would be the Shane McMahon elbow off of the Hell in the Cell on Undertaker at WrestleMania 32.
Yep.
Just to kind of add to it, it was just that the whole storyline was that Vince, he was fighting for control of the company. He's fighting for control of Raw, actually.
Yes.
Which was weird upon itself that it wasn't for the. I would thought it would have been for the company. But no, it was just of Raw, and I guess it was because Raw is the it's
a flagship
of the of the company. So that was the angle they were going for, and of course he misses and he loses, but that moment was still talked about. Let's be honest with you, that moment is why this year AJ Styles is fighting Shane McMahon.
Yeah, of course,
because everybody wants to see that.
Yeah, I mean Shane became the authority figure on SmackDown, and you want to see over the top. And he took the biggest guy on the roster at the time, Taker, set up to be McMahon's bully that year for the thing. He's getting Styles now, who is arguably the class of the whole roster, to do that. Because you're not going to see Shane against Cena. Because Cena's far too over. Cena is Cena. So just seeing Shane against AJ Styles is amazing. Both guys. AJ's going to be so far over, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
And they'll put some stipulations in between now and Mania.
Oh, I'm sure.
Something bizarre will come in.
First blood, no DQ, something crazy.
Yeah, something insane.
So that was my number 8. So now we'll move on to your number 7.
What was it? We didn't start the fire. The table was broken, and I burned my scrotum. Probably was that. That's my version of probably my favorite quote of last year from the Edge and Christian show. That is when at WrestleMania 22, Edge speared Foley through a flaming table. That's nuts. You don't see stuff like that anymore. For good reason, because it's nuts.
Yeah.
It was over the top. It was Foley's first WrestleMania moment. Just absolute insanity. Edge, who's already had, I mean, damn, there's 2 Edge spears in my list of WrestleMania moments for me.
And we'll get there. Yeah,
it's just, the hardcore great Mick Foley through a table, WrestleMania, that's on fire. You get somebody to watch that footage. Like, I'll show somebody that, like, if I want to, just something odd, like wrestling, we're talking about wrestling, what's one of the craziest things you've ever seen? And I show them that, and they're like, oh my God, that's horrible. Because he was bloody and just beaten. It was nuts. And that's it's just an amazing ride. It's something that, all wrestling fans should see. It's old guard, new guard. It's showing 2 of the best of all times doing something absolutely insane. Edge working one of Foley's type gimmicks, and Lita set the table on fire. 3 people that are in the Hall of Fame. No, Foley's not in yet, but
he will be. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he might as well be. So Lita and Edge already in the Hall of Fame.
Which is weird when you think about that. stop and ponder that. And I know it's top 10. I shouldn't be tangenting on it, but I'm going to anyway. If you would have thought about when that match happened, if you would have thought about who's in the Hall of Fame first, would you have thought the other two?
Well, they retired first.
I guess.
Edge had to retire.
Well, but no, I don't necessarily agree. I mean, because Mick was done. I mean, he came out of retirement for that match.
Was that before or after a stint in TNA?
That would have, well, he didn't really do anything in TNA. I mean, I don't count that. And to be honest with you, I mean, Flair was in TNA after he was put in the Hall of Fame. So I don't think that really matters. I just, from more on the sake of, you would have thought that it would have taken longer. Even if they retired the way they did, I would have thought Mick would have got in first, but neither here nor there. So that was your number 7, right?
Yeah, that was my 7.
My number 7, goes again it was a match that we probably thought never was going to happen. Sting finally wrestles at WrestleMania. I mean, it was just crazy. 13 years after WCW actually closed shop, he finally, gets his moment, his WrestleMania moment. He debuts at Survivor Series, and then that in 2014, and then of course in 2015, bam, he's finally there. That was 31, right? My brain's, Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the entrance was, it was kind of weird. Let's be honest with you. The whole drums and that kind of thing was odd, but.
Do you realize that of the party of girls that walked down with Triple H? No, was that the Terminator or the King?
That would have been Terminator.
Okay, never mind. Where he had all the girls, that was Alexa Bliss, Charlotte, and Sasha were 3 of the girls in that entrance.
Heck of a talented little.
Yeah, he had a good entrance ramp right there. But I am not as big a fan of Rafter Sting as I am Blonde Sting. That's just me. But Sting is still Sting. Sting's amazing. He was the man for WCW. And to a certain point, the way Vince is about bringing in the WCW guys, they typically never do very well. And Sting lost this match, but he lost it to arguably one of the greatest of our time, Triple H. You wound up though with the DX run in and the NWO run in.
Lots of Gaga, as Pat Patterson would call in this match.
The Gaga, that's the Gaga.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it gave you that amazing moment of having what you would like to have seen at the time happen at one time. You had the guys there. You had the legends down. It was a big deal.
It was heavily, lots of spectacle, lots of Gaga, like you said. And
well, that's what WrestleMania is.
We were disappointed with that ending. I felt like we all wanted Sting to get a victory.
Yeah.
But of course, like you said, Vince wasn't probably going to let that happen. So I don't blame him. I don't even blame Triple H for it. I just don't think Vince was ever going to let it happen.
No. Vince has his plan in his head.
Vince is going to make sure everybody knows that WWE won that war.
Yes.
So,
and
of course, here we are with Bill Goldberg as the Universal Champion going into WrestleMania.
My prediction is he's going down at WrestleMania.
You're probably right. So that being said, Sting finally getting his moment at 31. So what's your number 6?
6. Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the ladder. Jeff was hanging from the belt in that tables, ladders, and chairs match. And it was just insane that somebody would try that maneuver. Edge daring. It was them, the Dudleys, and the Hardys. Redefined tag teams, redefined the tables. Just what you could do in a match, just the extremity of what a match would go through. They upped the bar. They took the big chances. They were the highlight of that show. Arguably, WrestleMania 17, one of the greatest pay-per-view, one of the greatest WrestleManias, and that was the highlight for me of the show. That was just over the top. I couldn't have been more satisfied with that. Shocked. No, he's not going to do that type moment. And I guess that's where I keep getting stuck on that. Oh, God, I can't believe he did that moment. What gets me, the pop.
I mean, this match was so good. I mean, and that moment was the moment of that match, obviously. And if you go back to the archives and you see our Ultimate WrestleMania card, obviously that match is on that card.
Yeah, it has to be.
And when we go through these lists, there's actually going to be, you're going to see that pretty regularly. Mm-hmm. That's the case, that some of these matches are going to be on our Ultimate card as well. But not as much as I thought, which was kind of the funny part. When I went through this list, it was not as many as I thought would be there. So I cannot take anything away from that moment, that match. Mm-hmm. Although it would blow your mind, it's not on my list. Just too much other stuff. It was just too much other stuff.
WrestleMania moments.
Yeah.
Like I said, subjective. WrestleMania. Wrestling is not a sport you can quantify in a language everyone understands. It's something that everybody sees what they like and takes what they like. You know, you've got your Ring of Honor people who like that. And you like your TNA people, your luchadors, your Lucha Underground, and what your style is. You know, you like a certain style, and that's the thing people are fear of when WWE buys everybody. They're afraid that everything will be the same style. You know, you don't have any more of that WCW style, Southern wrestling, territorial style stuff. And that's good and bad. You know, you miss out on a lot of things. I think they've kind of recreated some of that when NXT.
Trying to, yeah.
They're trying to, but it's, you know, it's different. Ring of Honor and all those other ones, if you're a fan of that, that's your thing. Personally, I like the big production stuff. I like the big money wrestling. I like to see
You like Gaga.
Gaga, the crowds, the rings, the pomp and circumstance. You know, the celebrities in the audience.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
And I totally agree. There's going to be some of that even on my list. But my number 6 we're going to roll into, it's funny. It's not even a match. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about. It's the moments. The moment comes at WrestleMania 28. It's after, of all things, Hell in a Cell. And it's Undertaker versus Triple H with Shawn Michaels as a special referee. The match was not bad. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, the match was very good. But my moment is the moment that that match is over. They go up, the three of them walk to the top of the ramp, turn around, look out at that crowd, just kind of to soak it in. Because it was kind of like, you know, it was the end of an era. That was kind of the way they built it. This was it. And those three would never be in the ring together again. That kind of whole story. Yeah. Match was really good. But that moment just stands out. You see it constantly on TV. The three of them turning around, looking out at that crowd over and over and over again. Phenomenal moment, and I think it's one that'll stick in my head for a while.
I have to agree with you on that. That's three guys that have drawn more money, the three of them together, probably than any other three guys. I know The Rock probably and Cena these days, but those three guys were an era that was over. Like over beyond belief. And Taker's still wrestling today in his limited capacity, but it's just amazing to think of those three talents together like that.
Yep. So that leads us to your number 5, man.
My number 5 is WrestleMania 13. The heel, Stone Cold Steve Austin, is trapped in a sharpshooter by Bret Hart, the babyface. And Stone Cold is bleeding, in pain. He does not tap out. He just passes out from the pain. And then the babyface goes over and kicks him. And it starts Bret Hart's heel turn. It starts Stone Cold's face turn. Hart leaves for WCW. Monday Night Wars. Vince McMahon crushes WCW.
That's a big moment. I agree.
It's a cornerstone. Turn. It's a cornerstone. That double turn is a cornerstone piece in wrestling history. You know. And it set off the Stone Cold line, that semi-face line he had that was so popular and drew so much.
Yeah, that was the big heel, that was the big double turn. Mm-hmm. Austin skyrockets to the baby face that he became. Bret Hart becomes the heel that he became, you know, to be the foil to Austin there. Mm-hmm. If you've never heard this, there's a phenomenal podcast back in this archives. Stone Cold actually does a commentary of that match. Mm-hmm. Where he sits down and like watches it and then like kind of tells you what's going on throughout that match from his perspective, which is really cool. So definitely check that out. That's it's in his archive somewhere. You just have to hunt it down. But it's there. Maybe I should link that or something on our page or something, send it out. That was actually it's a great podcast. But yeah, it's not on my list. It's on my paper, which is messed up. It was actually on my paper, but I ended up having so many other things I had to scratch out. It ended up not making the list. So that was your 5, right?
That's my 5. Give me your 5.
My number 5 is WrestleMania 26.
26.
The retirement of Shawn Michaels.
Yes.
I sit there and kicked myself when I looked at my list and I was like, Shawn Michaels retiring is number 5. It's like, God, how much stuff must have happened to put that at number 5?
Yeah. Well, hadn't he just also was it the WrestleMania before that? He retired Flair, or?
That was, actually it was 2 before that.
2 before that. Okay.
Yeah, cause at, Undertaker, Shawn had this, the year before, which is funny, at 25, they had what people, and it's now when it comes to wrestling matches, again, I'm not talking, we'll have a whole other argument. If you listen on our, Ultimate WrestleMania card show, you'll hear that there's a debate about what constitutes the best match, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as a match goes, 25 25 was a better match than 26. 25, Shawn Michaels has gone on record and said that's probably, he's never wrestled a perfect match, but that's probably as close as it gets.
Wow.
But my moment actually wasn't in that match. It was 26 the following year when he puts his career versus the streak, because he's something about him. He's got to end the streak. And of course, he does not. He falls short, so he's retired. And then you have that moment at the end when he retires, obviously. There's a moment where Taker hugs him and kind of shows the respect at the end of the match. But that's the end.
Well, that's the way your career's supposed to end. You're supposed to job your last ending. You job your last match, you go out, and you put the other guy over. I mean, you didn't need to put Undertaker over, but you don't go out a winner in wrestling. That's perfect the way that was handled. I really can't say enough about the 2 wrestlers and what they've accomplished, and Shawn Michaels' career was incredible. It's one of the most incredible wrestling careers ever. He was the heel of heels and the face of faces. He was he was somebody people loved, people hated. That's a great pick, Nick.
So that's my number 5. What do you got at number 4?
Number 4 is at WrestleMania 18. It is the Rock and Hogan pop. Now, I really didn't understand this till a few weeks ago. We were sitting here working on our other WrestleMania 10 show, and Nick showed me the pop of the Hogan Rock match. And I watched the crowd in this more than I watched them, because it wasn't as important. The match wasn't as important as the feeling of Hogan and Rock and the amazing crowd response. The noise. These people just went crazy. Loudest fan pop I think that's ever been.
Bonkers.
It was insane.
Yep.
Quality piece right there.
I agree, but I'm going to be silent for a second because it's on my list.
It's on your list?
It's on my list, so it's coming back. So we go to my number 4, and guess what, folks? My number 4, it's, my 5 and 4 back to back involved retirements. Mm-hmm. WrestleMania 24, you just brought it up when we were talking about the previous one. Shawn Michaels retires Ric Flair.
The greatest of all time.
The moment that I'm specifically speaking of is the "I'm sorry, I love you" super kick pin. It's referenced. A lot of people have always gone down on record and called it the Old Yeller storyline. But I guess going out, you're going to go out in a blaze of glory, right? Mm-hmm. Ric Flair's beaten, broken, and just he's bloodied. Shawn's taking it to him. Because you remember, I don't know if you remember how we got here. Do you remember Ric Flair was being put in these matches that if he didn't win, he had to retire on Raw? And it was a string of matches over and over and over that they were going to, if he lost, I think it was, and the sad part is I can't remember if it was Eric Bischoff or Vince McMahon, but I believe it was Vince, was putting him in these, if you don't win, you're retired. You don't win. It kept going on and on and on. And finally the match is going to happen at WrestleMania. So basically, Flair picks Shawn Michaels, quote unquote, to be the guy. Because if I can't compete anymore at the highest level, I don't want to wrestle anymore, and I don't deserve it. So he picked Shawn Michaels, and of course, that was the downfall of Ric Flair picking Shawn Michaels to be his final match, because it was his final match, obviously.
Yeah, Ric Flair, greatest probably of all time. When I was a kid, you didn't even have to see Ric Flair. Because, you're watching your territory wrestling shows and they just talk about him and the belt and you don't even know who the hell he is, but you're impressed with him. He's the champion. I mean, he was the champion pretty much in the NWA champion for God knows how long. He was impressive. He had a phenomenal career, and to let it go out that way to finish at a WrestleMania, I mean, that's every wrestler's dream. You hear Jeff Hardy talking about coming back. He wants to finish versus Taker at WrestleMania. Everybody wants to finish their career at WrestleMania. And Flair was got to do that. It is powerful, and it's a great talent taking out another great talent.
I mean, and it was a whole weekend. I mean, he went into the freaking Hall of Fame the night before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of a moment. Obviously, that wasn't the WrestleMania, but yeah, that like I said, the things that make these moments are when they replay them over and over and over, and you will constantly see in video. Yeah, the highlight reel will always show "I'm sorry, I love you" kick pin. Most of the time, you don't even get the kick in the pin; you just get "I'm sorry, I love you." That kind of, so that's my number 4, man. So what you got at number 3?
For 3, I'm going to go to WrestleMania 3. Hogan body slams Andre after failing the first time. So it took him 2 tries. He body slammed Andre. Andre had previously won the Big John Studd body slam challenge. So it was a big deal. You just, no one slammed Andre. Andre put Hogan over. I mean, Hogan was over, but you might as well just filled him full of gold then once he slammed Andre and went over like that. That's the biggest push you could get. That's just the most amazing thing. You didn't just beat Andre, because Andre never was beaten, but you body slammed Andre. The crowd went wild. I remember that. It's from my childhood. It was incredible. It was colossal. It was the biggest thing ever to happen. I hate to say it. Shane's no Dave. I mean, Hulk was no David against Andre's Goliath, but still, it was an amazing thing that he was capable of doing that.
Yeah, that was the official quote unquote passing of the torch.
Yeah.
To Hogan from Andre. I won't tell you a whole lot, but that's kind of on my list as well. So I'm going to leave it blank until I get there. Mm-hmm. So that was your number 3.
Yep.
My number 3. We're going to repeat something you just talked about. I put it in my number 3, Rock Hogan, WrestleMania 18.
Yes.
And my note was most electric crowd I think I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. The extent we talked about it, it was such a moment. That, my notes also say face heel ? Because in that storyline, it was supposed to be Hogan was the heel, Rock was the babyface.
Yeah.
And when they came to the ring, man, that crowd was so split. And wasn't it Pritchard that said, he was like, they won't boo Hogan.
Yeah.
And they just would not boo Hogan. It was just funny. He was the NWO Hogan, he was Hollywood Hogan, and it didn't matter. Toronto.
The worst gimmick he possibly ever had. It was his least popular gimmick. I never liked the black Hogan. I always liked the red and yellow Hogan. That whole black and white gimmick, he looked horrible in it. You took Hogan as absolute shittiest, and still they wouldn't boo him. Because Hogan is the WWE.
Well, the black and white, the Hogan, it was time. It had to be done. He had run that course for that babyface for so long. So I kind of get where, why that move eventually was made. But my moment's just the moment they stood face to face in the ring, mm-hmm. before they ever even touched, looking at each other, looking at the crowd. And man, it was just kind of one of those moments where to be in that ring, mm-hmm. they just had to know they had them.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the crowd exactly where they wanted them. and it was just magic.
And they redirected the match.
Yeah.
Based on crowd response. And I don't even know if the guys these days are capable of feeling it like that. There's very few. I know Jericho could, but most of the younger guys couldn't do that. They couldn't shift the outcome of a match or call a match as it goes like that. Those matches aren't even called in the ring anymore, for Christ's sake.
It's I've heard, you hear a lot of the old timers talk about these, especially on podcasts. You hear it a lot, where it's, you spend so much time in your first few years just making sure you're hitting your moves right that you don't hear anything. You're not listening. You're just making sure, like, okay, it's this, it's this. But it's, they always talk about when you get to that 6th, 7th, 8th year, somewhere in that range, and things start clicking to the point that you're just doing it naturally, that you start listening to the crowd.
Yeah.
And you react to the crowd, and so you give them what they want. Because sometimes what you go out there with on paper isn't what they, what doesn't just work, and you got to be able to call that audible. Man, this to me was probably one of the ultimate audibles of all time.
Yes.
So now, if you want to hear me even gush over this match even more, if you go back in the archives to that Ultimate WrestleMania card show, trust me, it's on the list. We'll leave it at that. It's on the list. So that's my number 3. Who you got at number 2?
Number 2, I'm going to go back to the WrestleMania 23 and the Trump shaving Vince McMahon's head, simply because of the political significance. Just seeing nowadays, looking back, and he's the president of the United States in a ring doing an angle with Vince McMahon. I mean, that's insane. No other president's done that. It's the significance of it has made me move it to my number 2 spot.
And think about, I didn't even mention this. Didn't he eat a stunner that night?
Yeah, I believe so.
Stone Cold Steve Austin has stunned the president of the United States. I mean, think about that. It's kind of a little wacky little tidbit, but yes, he has. So yeah, and obviously it was already on my list, so I totally agree. Mm-hmm. And at the time that was the big storyline. It was just the money, the battle of the billionaires.
Yep.
So that was your number 3.
Yep.
Or that was your
number 2.
Your number 2. Sorry.
Yes,
I'm
your
totally
number 2,
blanking. My number 2, I think we're going to be in danger here. Because my number 2 has got to be close. Brock Lesnar ends the streak at WrestleMania 30. The stunned face of 70,000 people in the Superdome.
The stunned face of the people that were sitting here confused.
Yeah, going like, what?
Bart's response was one of the most epic ones to it. He was in shock.
We all were. We're all like, what? See,
I made that my number 1, and so we'll just have our code discussion here.
Gotcha.
That streak was what, 25 years?
It was it's at that point it was 21.
21. Okay. At that point, they'd only been like what? How many? 30,
well, he beat it at 30.
There'd only been 30 WrestleManias, and Undertaker had won in 21 of them. So that's continuity. That's the WWE. Over 2/3 of the amount of WrestleManias he appeared at, and he won.
And to think that really there was never, in the beginning, there wasn't really a streak.
It just was happening.
It organically happened. It was almost, I bet like one day somebody just goes, shit, you realize we've never beaten The Undertaker at WrestleMania?
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy that must have been. I wonder when that,
wasn't it Orton the year before? Was tried to break the streak. There were all these years you try to break the streak,
It was always somebody. And Punk tried, you know, Orton had tried. I mean, obviously Mick had tried. I mean, just think about it. 4 years consecutively, it was Triple H and Shawn Michaels first, then Triple H, because it was 2 and 2.
Yeah.
I mean, so
you get the biggest stars going after the biggest record in wrestling history, the Undertaker streak. They give it to Brock Lesnar. What you think is going to be the passing of the torch, but Taker just can't stay out of the damn ring.
I don't know that it's him that can't stay out of the ring. I just think they just feel like every year they feel like they need him.
Need him for Mania?
Yeah. I mean, that's just,
I'm hoping this year will be his last. But, yeah, that's pass the torch, put Lesnar over, and Lesnar was over more than anybody else until that loss. I mean, and I don't know if those 2 losses are going to hurt him. but we'll see soon enough. You know, it's going in for WrestleMania. They managed to use it to build up to WrestleMania. And I mean, you look at the picture and you got of what's coming up at WrestleMania, and you get Goldberg and Lesnar right up there. The front three people are Lesnar, Taker, Goldberg on the picture promoting WrestleMania 33.
Yeah.
So basically, they built it. They put it over. They changed the torch. They sold you on Lesnar, and they ended the most important streak in wrestling history. So that's a big deal. And to me, that was my number one moment, because that's the moment that encompasses 20-something years of wrestling and WrestleManias.
And I completely give you the thumbs up. I would have agreed.
So now you're going to have to beat that one with your number one.
Well, I mean, you've already addressed it, but I just, for some reason, it's just, to me, it's the epitome of the WrestleMania moments. It's Hulk Hogan slamming Andre.
Yeah.
At WrestleMania 3, it's just, anytime you see the video, playing again, it's Hogan slamming Andre. Hogan. Because I think 1 and 2 were huge. They were big deals.
Yeah.
But to me, 3 was kind of the thing that made it go like, okay, this is really a big deal. WrestleMania is really important.
Yeah.
And the icing on the cake of that to make, we will sit here and argue, yes, Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat was a much better match, obviously, but again, this is a moment. This isn't about matches.
You don't remember Savage and Steamboat when you were 12 years old or whatever year it was when you saw that.
You remember Hulk Hogan picking up Andre and slamming him.
Yeah.
And I know the dorks would completely probably agree with this. I know Sam's a big Hogan mark. So shout out that this is on my top of my list to him. I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
See, I'm not as big a Hogan mark as I am a WWE mark. And this is a WWE moment, or WWF at the time. It's a huge moment, and it defined an era. And it defined an era where wrestling was the huge deal for a young boy growing up in the hayfields of Alabama. It was amazing to me. I mean, wrestling was amazing. I hung on every word, and this was the biggest deal. It put WWE over. It put Hogan farther over than he's ever been. It couldn't get no more bigger than that.
And I agree, and I'm sitting here cheating. I'm trying to look at my list because I was curious. If you look at your list real quick, is there somebody that just stands out that kind of dominated your list? Because, I mean, I'm joking because I'm kind of like, Hogan's in 1, 2, 3 of my moments. Taker is in 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of my top 10 moments have Undertaker involved.
Well, how can you not have Taker in the majority of your moments when he was there at the majority of the WrestleManias? No one else has been as many. Vince McMahon's not been to that many WrestleManias.
Yeah, that's not a bad call, actually. So those two, Hogan and Taker, pretty much dominate my top 10, which is not the biggest surprise on the planet. Because, like you said, they're kind of over that stretch of that 30. The beginning, obviously, was Hogan was the beginning. Taker was the last 2/3 was everything involved was Undertaker. So I guess that makes a lot of sense.
It's a really heavy burden for the guys today to pick up that mantle and carry it.
I don't know that anybody can. That's the issue. That's the challenge that everybody faces. So, so here we are heading into Mania, and we're wondering, what's the moment, what is the WrestleMania moment this year? Well, the beauty of it is from year in and year out, you don't know.
No, it's a shock. To me, it's a shock value.
I mean, everybody I think is probably laying money on, Shane's going to do something crazy. But my thing, is, hey, he's clearly dominated my list. Taker and Reigns. If Taker's, big, send off is this time around, maybe it's something with Taker.
You're going to see the best quality match. It's going to be Owens and Jericho.
You're probably right. I absolutely agree.
It's going to be somewhere between technical and amazing.
Yeah.
You're going to get that massive amount of heat for the mixed tag team match.
Yep.
it's hard to look at this card and not be super excited. There's 8 titles on the reign, and they still haven't put the SmackDown tag titles on there yet.
It'll hit there.
Yeah.
They'll definitely get there.
So it's just going to be over the top action. That Cruiserweight Championship match looks really good.
And the sad part is a lot of the matches look good. Mm-hmm. I don't really have a beef with, other than, I don't like all the women being piled into those matches. I wish it was more one-on-one.
Well, that's the thing. And it really shows how much they're undervaluing the women's division, which has been the backbone of the programs lately, to put all the Raw women and all the SmackDown women in one match.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish they would have just.
And when you had the Rumble, you had all the SmackDown women versus all the Raw women.
Yeah.
And that's insane. No.
Yeah.
They've earned more than that.
I agree. But we'll find out what is the WrestleMania moment this year. So we're going to kind of ask, hey, here's our list.
What's
Agree or disagree? Send us your list. And then, of course, once we have them, once WrestleMania's here, shoot us what your moment was. We'd love to hear from you. Cause we would rather, we always joke about this. We can, we give you our top 10s list. It's basically to stir conversation. So you'll shoot us yours.
Yep.
That's what we want. We want you guys to give us your information.
Who's going to run out this year, folks?
Our whole thing with our shows right now is it's all about you voicing your opinion on our show. We're trying to give you the platform to call, to email, to DM us on Twitter, message us on Facebook, all of those things.
Send us letters.
So I just rattled off of these things.
Self-Adair stomped envelopes, whatever.
Yeah. I rattled off all this stuff and somebody's going to go, but I don't even know how to do that. So we backtrack up and I go, well, if you do want to send us one of those, first of all, you could email us, tappedoutwrestlingpodcast@gmail.com, tappedoutwrestlingpodcast@gmail.com.
Please put the subject in the subject line.
Yes, because
I don't know. Other podcasts say that. I've always wanted to say it too.
Well, we kind of want to know what we're opening before we open it. Sometimes it's links to things which we don't want to see, or sometimes
I don't need any more enhancements.
Yeah. So yes, in the subject, put in there, my top 10, because it depends on what show you're listening to. My top 10 WrestleMania moments, etc. Or just I agree with Nick, or I agree with Myron, or I disagree with Myron, or I disagree with Nick. And then of course, hey, if you email us, that's fine. We love that. You can find us at Tapped.Wrestling Podcast Network on Facebook. You can message us there. Go straight to my phone, believe it or not. So I'm actually checking it pretty often. If I don't respond pretty quick, it probably means I'm working or something, or, feeding kids or something.
Yeah. Or taking chicken to people.
Taking the chicken to people. Right. Yeah. Or you can DM us on Twitter at TappedOutPod. That is at TappedOutPod. And then of course, if you love my list, but you hate Myron's list,
yes,
you can always just
I am the heel commentator. I am Myron the Brain.
Yeah. But on Twitter, you are
Myron the Mark, TOP.
Myron the Mark, TOP. I'm Tapped Out Nick. Pretty simple. But that's, shoot it to at Tapped Out Pod. We'll be more than happy to field the DMs there as well. Trust me, I'll forward them right on over to him if you have a beef with his.
Yes. But we've told these people all these things about where to find us, and they could just go to our website.
Man, if they just went to the website, it'd be simple because all of what we just said is there. It's the email links there, the Facebook, the Twitter, it's all there. And what else is there?
The media player.
What's on the media player?
Everything we've ever done.
Yep.
The library, the archives, the greatest collection of podcasting knowledge since the Library of Alexandria.
And it's real simple now. The media player's there. It has the last few episodes that are there. We did switch the media player around a little bit.
Yes, we went with our Blog Talk media player.
Well, the reason we did it was because some people were saying it was loading too slow with the old way, because believe me, it was loading 80-something episodes at this point, and they were slowing it down. So we decided, hey, here's what we'll do. The media player holds it has the last one and then the 5 older ones before that. But then right below it, there's an image that says archived episodes. If you click that, it'll go straight to our Blog Talk page, which has all of the episodes on there. You can either download them, you can stream them, do whatever you want. We just thought that was easier. And guess what? If you disagree with that, if you prefer the old media player, any of those ways to contact us we just told you about, let us know. Because, hey, we'll go back. It's not a problem. We want somebody to tell us that's why we're going back. But also on the webpage, to the left, we have all the places you can subscribe to us. We are on iTunes, we're on Google Play, we're on YouTube. There's some other ways out there. We're just kind of dwindling it down a little bit.
We're doing those massive live shows on Blog Talk. If you want the hot tag, if you want to talk to us live, Blog Talk Radio, Nick posts the links on our Facebook and our Twitters every week before we go live. We typically go live after SmackDown and Raw.
It's 10. We usually go at 11:30 on Mondays after Raw. We go around 11 o'clock on Tuesdays after SmackDown. That's pretty consistent for the most part. Barring something coming up, that delays the show or postpones the show for that matter. But typically that's what we hit. But the surprise shows are the ones that I always tell people, you want to follow us on Facebook and on Twitter, because randomly, if me and you get together and we just get a wild hair, we're going to record a show.
Yes.
Sometimes, and we thought about it on this episode, but we just really didn't want to do it on this one for a specific reason. But we'll pop on there. This is a podcast version that will drop out on a later date, obviously. But sometimes we would do one that you get a sneak peek if you actually follow us on Twitter and Facebook. If the link pops up, always jump in and listen, because you might get a shock that you get to listen to an episode a few days early, if not like a week early. So keep that in mind. So all of that is out there on the website to the left. Blog Talk Radio just click on it. It'll take you right to our page on there as well. The call-in number, everything's on there that you need to call into the show, because we just mentioned to you our whole point. The show's built for you to call us and tell us your thoughts and your opinions. We can sit there and talk for an hour if you want us to, but we would prefer you call and ask us the questions, and we'll ask you questions, and you can answer us back, because that's kind of the whole point of the call-in shows. Then of course to the right on our webpage, all the friends of the show are there. We've got our new Fight app. We are an affiliate with them.
Oh, I'm super excited about that.
We love the Fight app.
Yes.
It's got tons of stuff on there. The link, you can click on that link on our webpage, and you can download that app it's on iTunes and on Google Play. Or if you ever so often check on Twitter and Facebook, trust me, I'm putting the link there. Because kind of on a daily thing now, what I'm doing, I'm kind of giving you the idea of what can you get on the Fight app every night. There's pretty much wrestling on the Fight app every single night, and a lot of times it's free. That's the amazing part. It is free. Mm-hmm. Cause if people always want to know, like, well, maybe I don't like WWE. Okay. Well, guess what? We're going to give you alternatives. And how do we do that?
Right to the Fight app.
Go to the Fight app, man.
There's pro wrestling all over the place. You got ICW. You got Ring of Honor. You've got wrestling federations even I've never heard of.
And you got Impact. You've got it all on there.
You got a lot of people hitting each other.
Yeah. The beauty of it is you've also got boxing, you got MMA, jiu-jitsu, all that kind of other stuff that's on there. So like I said, go to our webpage, click on that link, download it, or find the link on our Twitter, Facebook, click that link, download the app, register. A lot of the product's free. We keep telling you that. A lot of it's free. There are some pay-per-views, which are super cool. They're not super expensive. $9.99, $40. There are some $29.
But if you go through our app, what happens? I mean, our webpage when you go.
Well, the beauty is a lot like our Amazon, which we'll discuss in a second. With the Fight app, it's kind of supporting them, but you're also going to support us. We actually get a little bit of kickback from the Fight app. Helps us out. Keeps covering these operating costs, much like our Amazon app. So, which is we were just about to go into. The Amazon app is if you click on that link and you make that your bookmark, anytime you make any purchases through ours. Now, the important part is don't go to Amazon.com and start purchasing. What you want to do is you want to click on our link on our webpage or the link that's on our Twitter and Facebook from time to time. Click on that, go through there, and then I always tell people, bookmark that, and then use that link from now on, because all of your regular purchases, we're not asking you to buy anything. Nothing extra. Buy the stuff you want, but through our link, your prices aren't any higher. They didn't cost you a single dime, but they kick us back some commissions, much like the Fight app, and it helps cover the operating expenses of the show. We would greatly appreciate that. Last but not least, at the bottom on that corner there, Leather by Dan, who is not a paid sponsor. We don't make a dime from Leather by Dan. We just think it's best.
We just wanted the link there on the website so we could go to it easily.
Yeah, pretty much. We always are constantly checking out his belts, thinking about getting one. So, and that's kind of why we just like his stuff there. So, and then on top of that, man, if you, like I said, on our webpage, just all of that stuff, all of the shows are there. So you don't miss anything. You don't miss an episode of, cause all of the live shows we drop as podcast, the Raw and the SmackDown. We've now got, the Gorilla Press with the Wrestling Dorks coming in. We drop the Sunday 7 and the 10 count rotate weekends. We do preview shows, obviously. The great Eric Stanton soon to be returning. He's going to be back dropping his show. We've got a new show coming, a new Impact show.
He was training in Nepal, wasn't he?
He was in Nepal training, yeah.
Yeah. Shaolin shit and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got all this stuff going on, and just the easiest way, if you subscribe, that's my big thing, man. Just go to iTunes or Google Play, subscribe, and make sure you're downloading your episodes, because, everybody knows iTunes and it only lets you download so many before you got to delete them off or whatever, or it won't download anymore. So, make sure you're downloading them, listening to them, and then deleting them so you don't miss any of those episodes. Because pretty soon, I mean, we're talking 5 episodes a week maybe at some point here soon.
Yeah, oh yeah, we're rocking and rolling,
yeah,
man.
So definitely you don't want to fall behind, because we're going to start churning out some. The beauty is we're going to get more show specific, hopefully, per shows. You have an Impact show, Ring of Honor show, so that way you kind of.
And let's review some of these pay-per-views and some of these shows from these companies we've never heard of on the 5 app.
That's actually where
we're
heading.
Sit down. Let's watch some crazy pay-per-views and then come back with our takes on them.
Exactly. And those are kind of maybe one-off shows that we do. We might watch, I know, we got our buddies over in the UK, the Buzzards, wrestling podcast, who you may hear us on soon.
Yes.
But they're big. So I'm actually been talking to them a little bit about maybe I'm going to watch some of the,
Hey, I'm super excited about the English scene.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I told him, I said, man, I need to watch some of this ICW, some Progress, some, that kind of stuff, and get more involved in that.
I thought the ICW had to do with us clowns.
That's the insane clown posse wrestling or something.
I don't want anything to do with
it. It was Juggalo wrestling or something like that's what they were called. Yeah. But so definitely, check out the Fight app. Keep on our Amazon. Keep supporting us. And of course, most importantly, subscribe, download all the episodes. Don't miss any.
Highly.
That's the big one. Rate and review us on iTunes, Google Play, because, man, that helps move us up in the ratings.
Click the Meltzer button and give us 6 stars.
Exactly. It'd be nice if there was a 6-star match or 6-star podcast. So anyway, man, that's a lot, man. we're going to come up with I'm going to come up with some professional commercials to get all through that. Maybe I just shoot one and we'll be one and done, right?
Have you or your family been injured by asbestos?
Yeah, don't even get me started about that. That's a whole other rant. It's a whole other show. So, man, that wraps up another episode of the 10 Count. There's not usually any extra news today. So, of course, if that means we're done, what do we have to do to get out of here?
We tap out.